video, I just want to share my thoughts about driving the GT3 touring and the rural Thai roads. This is a car that is designed for German roads, for the racetrack. It's definitely not designed for roads such as these. Although it will tolerate it, it's not at its happiest when driven on these roads. And I've chosen not to talk about the car on the first day of the drive because I feel like the first day of the drive is always more antsy. You have to get used to the roads, you have to get used to the car. But from my past experience, the second day of any road trip, that moment when you get into the car, when you drive it on the second day, things just click. Things starts to make sense. Everything is just a little bit easier, just a little bit more comfortable, and your confidence level just a little bit higher than before. Look at this road. Wow. The staircase that leads to death, I guess. So it's no surprise that the GT3 is an immensely capable car. And when I drive this car, especially on the first day, I felt a little bit uncomfortable because the limits are so high and the grip levels of this car are so high. There's so much power, and at the same time, I'm sorry, but the steering of this car with its hyper reactive action, which Porsche admits themselves that they may have made it a bit too hyper reactive in this .1 generation of the 992 GT3, that they pulled it back in the .2. This hyper reactive steering, when paired with these sport seats, I don't know how it will be when using a bucket seat, but for sure it must be better. But when you're sitting in these sport seats, which Porsche sport seats, they tend to feel a little bit like a gym bench. It's not so deep. You don't feel like you're sinking in the seat, but you feel like you're sitting on it like a gym bench. And there's not too much lateral body support. And what you don't realize with most cars when you're driving, when the cornering forces are being applied to your body, your torso, your natural reaction is to use your limbs as support. You're bracing the G-forces with your resting foot and of course with maybe your elbows sometimes, but with your hands. The steering wheel actually, in some sense, are used to stabilize your body under cornering. And when a car has super reactive, look at this, super reactive steering, even this tiny movement, when the roads are rough, when the car kind of bounces around with its really stiff suspension setup, you involuntarily start to move the wheel, and that upsets the balance of the car even more, which can be a little bit unnerving. And it's not dangerous, but it is unsettling, and it does take time getting used to, especially if you are coming from driving air-cooled Porsches or even 996s, 997s with their hydraulic steering, where the center, the on-center movement provides a lot of slack and compliance. And in this car, all of a sudden, every tiny bit of movement translates to direct action. It is a selling point for the car when you use it on completely flat, perfect, marble smooth roads or on track. But on public roads like these, where this car spends 90% of its life, it may be a drawback. may be disconcerting to some drivers. However, once you do get used to it, just like any car with quirks, once you get used to it, it becomes a unique feature. And you tune into it and you start to enjoy it. You love it for what it is. And in some sense, that is the quintessential meaning of driving a 911. Having the engine out back doesn't inherently make any sense, but you adjust to it and you end up loving it and you can't live without it. And I have a feeling that this car, maybe in 10-20 years time, where amongst the Porsche 911 lineup, the car with the most hyperactive steering maybe will have a cult following. Who knows? Only time will tell. But it is probably the highlight of this car, the thing that I would dedicate the most time talking about is the steering. Now Porsche, and what some people would say is that, oh, that's because they implemented the double wishbone suspension in this generation, and that's why it's so sharp, so hyper reactive. Nope, not really, because what the double wishbone does, it just reduces camber change during the wheel's vertical travel, so improves the contact patch, improves tire grip management during cornering, ideally, not from bumpy roads. So the double wishbone doesn't really have too much of an effect of how sensitive the steering input is. That comes down to the tuning of the steering. And I know this as a fact because in the 911 ST, with the same double wishbone setup, they toned it down. And as I might have mentioned previously, in the .2 GT3, they also toned it down while using the same double wishbone setup. So there you have it. Maybe they use this hyper reactiveness as a way to attract and help people differentiate the fact that it has a double wishbone initially, but over time they decided to backtrack on how aggressive this tuning is. Oh, look at this. This is... I need to concentrate. Might lift the wheel here. Nope, no lifted wheel. Oh, finally the engine gets to breathe. Direct injection engines do not like to sit at idle or low revs for too long. It's not good for them. It is good to hear this thing sing. Finally on some proper roads after a long struggle. Is my traction control off? Yes, it is. I don't always turn it off, but I like to turn it off when I feel happy. So people think it's crazy, but I mean, I come from driving a 996 GT3, and that thing has no traction control. You don't even have a choice. And when you don't have a choice, you don't really think about it. You're not scared. But when you are given the choice to turn it on or off in a modern car, it feels a little bit scary when you do turn it off, just because there is that safety net. And when you choose not to use a safety net, it makes it a little bit scarier. So I'm trying a little bit of a dirty style driving, just to flick the tail out a little bit, but not successfully, because this thing has so much rear end grip. It's insane. But when it does step out, it does feel like a classic 911, because the weight is in the back. How should I describe this? It has this motorboat feeling. You know, when you in a boat, the propulsion's in the back, the weight of the motor is in the back, and you can steer with the back end. And even when the back has lost grip, it still somehow feels grippy. That's a 911 feature that brings enthusiasts to truly love, is that on the limit, it still feels within the limit somehow. It's just that you get to steer with the rear end as well as the front end, and having this double steering action going on by using both your hands and your feet is the joy of driving a car like the Porsche 911. Now I don't need to use too high of revs, because this 4-liter engine is actually impressively torquey without people realizing it. Now why do I say that? Because I think the throttle mapping on modern cars, or let's just say on this car, is not ideal. The best kind of throttle mapping, in my opinion, when you step on the throttle, should feel like you are squeezing a tube of toothpaste. The harder you squeeze it, the more toothpaste will gush out, the more power will ooze out the engine. But on this car, depending on the rev range, especially on the lower rev ranges, you don't have to go all the way down on the pedal for you to extract maximum power. And that leaves maybe the last 30%, if not 40% of the pedal travel to basically do nothing. I mean, it gets a little bit louder, but power-wise, you don't get that reciprocal feedback. You're giving it more, 30% more, 40% more, but you're only getting 10% back, maybe 5% back. And that, as a feedback loop for the brain, will feel like, hey, it's not as torquey as I would like it to be. Well, even though it actually is quite torquey, but it's just that feedback. That feedback causes your brain to think of it negatively because you're not getting what you want. The best examples of a really well done throttle mapping are old cars with Weber carburetors. That last 10% always makes a huge difference. In fact, that 10% gives you more. That 10% of squeezing the toothpaste will gush out, maybe even squirt out a whole bunch of toothpaste. And I love it when cars do that. It's predictable, it's rewarding, and it gives you that dopamine hit. Another surprising car that does this is the Citroen CX, the one with the carbureted engine. That last 10% gives you maybe like 30% of more power, and it's so fun, even though that car is actually very slow. But because of that surprising input of power, you don't feel like the car is slow. You're having fun because you know every time you press that final 10%, you're gonna be rewarded with more than you asked for. And modern cars don't do this. I think they know this. They cannot do this. And maybe it's something to do with emissions, regulations, and having so many throttle bodies in the engine. Like, for example, this car has individual throttle bodies, but in front of those individual throttle bodies, there's like one or two more throttle bodies to, I don't know, control resonance or emissions, whatever. But I know the car makers can do better, but they have their hands tied by regulations, and I don't blame them. It is the environment of the car industry now, and being environmental is the most important thing, so we just have to make do with what we can get. Having said that, if you can somehow get over the throttle mapping, throttle linearity. I wouldn't call it issue, but let's just call it issue of this car. And the steering issue. Everything else is just perfect. Is it? What about the suspension? Well, sometimes I feel like the suspension is so good, so damn good, but other times I feel like it's too stiff. And I mean, I can't blame the car. I can't even blame the roads. It is what it is. There is no do-it-all suspension. Even though if your suspension is adaptive, no suspension can cater to all kinds of driving conditions. But I have to say, the damping on this car is next to none. It is so good, so good. I have said this once before, but it is amongst one of the most sophisticated dampings, one of the most sophisticated damping on a car that I have experienced. And it's really hard to explain the feeling, but you know, when you hear a good sound system, you know straight away it's a good sound system, and there is no going back. When you feel good when you feel good suspension damping, you know it straight away, and there is no going back. When you go back to your old car with regular, mediocre damping, you feel shit. Like, why can't my car be like this? Brakes, I don't even have to talk about the brakes. Porsche never fails when it comes to brakes. Every sports car made by Porsche has excellent brakes. I can't speak for the Cayenne or the Macan or the Panamera because I've never driven them. But even the Cayman S, that red car in the front, even that car has excellent brakes. Porsche never fails when it comes to brakes. I don't even need to rev it to 9,000. Every time you hit that 5,000 mark, it just comes alive. Just comes alive. But what about the sound? Well, I must say the 992 doesn't sound as good as the 991. 991 has a lot more mechanical sound. It has more intake resonance. This car is a bit mumbled, jumbled, maybe because of the OPF, maybe because of additional sound deadening, I don't know. But this car just doesn't sound as rewarding. And we even installed a slip-on exhaust from Akaprovic on this car, a titanium one. And it's, well, in Thailand it cost $10,000. Something like that. It's probably the worst $10,000 the previous owner spent. I didn't pay for this. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, you save some weight, but I don't really feel the weight difference. There is, it's slightly louder maybe, but it doesn't bring any liveliness to the sound. It's the same sound, just a bit louder. But man, this car has so much rear end traction, or even front end traction. It just grips and grips and grips. And even though the steering feel is not exactly the most communicative, the most talkative 911, but because you're sitting close to the rear wheel, when it does step out just even a tiny bit, you feel it straight away. And having that hypersensitive steering allows you to react really fast. So just like everything, there are always pros and cons, and you just got to be in tune with the car. And once you're in tune with it, like all Porsches, they just become a heavenly experience. Not about the numbers, but about the experience, the driving. And driving in this group is so relaxed because our leader, the guy at the front, he will let us know, heads up, cars coming up, or let us know good for overtake or not. And that is why sometimes we cross double yellows. And if some of you do not like that, then tough luck, all right? But we already try to be as safe as we can. Should I talk about the auto rev matching, the auto blip function? It's so good, but I don't want to use it. It just I don't feel like a real man if I use it. But I do leave it on if it's driving situations like this when I am not able to 100% concentrate because I'm filming and talking and the roads are wet and I don't want to make a single mistake, as that would be very, very, very costly. Then I leave the auto blip on because it's helping me, it's saving me in some sense. Alright, I thought of one more thing to talk about. That is the traction control of this car. Now, a huge portion of the driving yesterday I kept it off, but now because the roads are so bad and damp, I decided to keep it on. And I realized that, you know, this traction control is actually not just a safety feature, but it could be a driving feature. It helps you go faster because I think in part of the e-diff that this car is fitted with, I believe it is an e-diff, it helps you manage traction without interrupting the power delivery. So it senses when there's a tiny bit of slip and it might just cut power off that particular rear wheel, and somehow it's still pulling hard. And with it on, I'm actually able to get on the gas earlier when coming out of corners, and it somehow gives you a lot more confidence. When it does act, it doesn't even, there's no light, but I feel it. It's helping me. It's not hindering me. It's not just preventing me from dying, but it's helping me corner tighter and exit faster. Like I said, once you're in tune with the steering, is it sweet? As long as the roads are not bumpy and it doesn't throw you around, when you have full control of the wheel and you don't have to worry about bracing yourself, this steering can be magical. It can be magical. So now I'm stuck with this dilemma with, should I keep the traction on or off? Because whenever I see a corner that's just right, I just want to, you know, flick the rear out a tiny bit. Oh, maybe I should try track mode. I haven't done that. Put it to soft and see how that goes. Haven't driven it in track mode yet. Because I'm not on the track and it feels wrong using track mode when you are on these tiny ass B roads. Oh, the view. Wait, let's squats down, all four wheels squatting down. You feel all that extra traction from the additional vertical load, and it just feels so good. It gives you so much confidence when pushing. On the other hand, when the camber is working against you, camber on the road, not the wheel, okay? Road camber. When it's working against you, this car can be a bit hairy to drive. A bit hairy to drive. You didn't hear me before. Look at that. Hairpin. Now it's a good time to test track mode. So it's kind of helping, but it's causing understeer just now and then oversteer because it doesn't know what I want. Oh yeah, it's definitely getting in the way, but you don't feel it working aggressively. Not like other cars, it would just cut power and then all of a sudden you feel this negative G. It tries to keep the car in a clean line. Doesn't know what I want. So let's just turn it back off. I hope I don't, these aren't like famous last words. But with it off, you feel somehow that the rear end is liberated. It's able to do what you tell it to do. Feel as anchored as before. It's just a tiny bit of slip, but you just get that this minuscule amount of oversteer, but ever so rewarding and satisfying. And that's all I want. I don't want any big slides because I'm not talented enough. I just want that living on the edge feeling once in a while. Like that. Not the most beautiful of slides, but that's all I want. It just adds a little bit more brightness to the day. suppose I need to sum up the drive. After 20-30 minutes of talking, how do I summarize this car for these roads? Well, if you are a competent driver, good understanding of how a Porsche 911 drives, and you would like to experience that same 911 characteristic but turned up to 12 where the limits are unusually high, like super terrestrial levels high, and the inputs are pinpoint precise, then this is a wonderful driving experience. Boy, you gotta be on top of your game, and you gotta know what you're doing. You drive too slow, this car is actually kind of boring. Lacks drama. When you get to 7, 8, 9, 10 tenths, you feel alive, man, because you realize your limits are so much lower than what the car can do, and you just want to keep stepping deeper into the waters, exploring your own personal limits until you reach that magical territory where your limit meets the car's close to, and you feel so alive. Oh. These camber changes. Look at that bit of squiggly motion. I'll show you what it can do. When you give it too much steering input, the front end will start to kind of push wide, and then you give it gas, and all of a sudden the rear end will come out. It's so easy to telegraph. If you fuck up, you're dead. Fuck up the car. You gotta choose your corners wisely. Which corner you want to play around with, and which you keeping it clean. And you're always judging every corner. And every corner you complete is just like another hit of dopamine. This is no 997. This isn't even a 991. 992 GT3 is its own thing, and it will have a place in the Porsche history. Will it be one of the most loved ones? I really have no idea, but what matters is I'm on this road right now, and I'm enjoying the heck out of this car, and that's what Porsches are about, driving. Thanks for watching.